From the time of Socrates, the true role of education was not to mold people into obedient citizens, but to awaken the mind from its slumber. Education, in its purest form, is liberation. It is the slow and often painful journey of the soul from ignorance to understanding, what Plato called anamnesis, the remembering of truths buried deep within us. But what if the education we've inherited isn't meant to liberate, but to imprison? In Plato's allegory of the cave, he describes prisoners chained inside a dark cavern, mistaking shadows on the wall for reality. These captives believe the illusions they see are the totality of existence. When one prisoner breaks free and sees the real world, the light blinds him. Yet eventually, he understands the truth. Now imagine a world where education itself becomes the wall, the chains, the shadows, not the key to escape. That is the great deception. Modern society has wrapped this deception in noble language, achievement, success, intelligence. But behind the veil lies something deeply unsettling. Our schools have not evolved into temples of wisdom, but have become factories of obedience. If you've ever felt that school killed your curiosity, stifled your imagination, or boxed in your soul, you're not alone. Today, we're going to expose the carefully engineered lie that modern education has become, and what true learning was always meant to be. 1. The illusion of education. Let's begin by dismantling the illusion. Society tells us that education is the key to freedom, but we rarely ask, freedom from what, and for what purpose? Most of us enter the school system not by choice, but by mandate. From age 5 or 6, we are placed into institutions where time is divided by bells, creativity is replaced by curricula, and the value of a human soul is reduced to letters on a report card. The origin of our modern education system lies not in a pursuit of knowledge, but in the needs of 19th century industrialism. Factory owners needed punctual, disciplined, and compliant workers. So they created schools in their image, a system that prizes repetition over reasoning, memorization over meaning. The bells that ring at the end of a class period are not unlike the sirens that signal a factory shift change. The classroom becomes a training ground, not for life, but for labor. The tragedy is that this illusion is so well constructed we rarely question it. We compete for grades, not understanding. We fear failure, not ignorance. We internalize the idea that intelligence can be quantified by a standardized test, never realizing that wisdom, the kind Socrates lived and died for, is beyond metrics. The result? Generations of individuals who know how to follow directions, but not how to follow their own path. 2. The system isn't broken, it's working perfectly. Here's a statement that shocks many. The education system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed to. It is not failing, it is succeeding, just not in the way you've been led to believe. The system wasn't built to foster independent thinkers. It was engineered to produce predictable consumers, passive voters, and obedient workers. Ivan Illich, a radical thinker and philosopher of education, once said that school has become the world religion of a modernized proletariat. He understood that education was no longer about learning, but about sorting, labeling students, separating the useful from the useless, turning learning into a mechanism of control. Those who question authority are punished, those who comply are rewarded. And over time, we mistake obedience for intelligence. This is why year after year, bright and imaginative students are dimmed down to fit inside the box. The system selects for conformity, not brilliance. It doesn't matter if a child is a gifted musician, philosopher, or artist. If they can't pass a math test, they are labeled below average. But ask yourself, how many of the world's greatest minds were ever considered average or even failures by the standards of their time? 3. The killing of curiosity. Children are natural philosophers. Watch a 5-year-old and you'll see someone constantly asking why. Why is the sky blue? Why do people lie? Why do I have to do this? But by the time they're teenagers, that wonder has been replaced by apathy, not because it faded, but because it was systematically suppressed. The educational system does not reward questions, it rewards answers. Preferably short, tidy, multiple-choice answers. Questions that don't fit inside a curriculum are labeled disruptive. And so, by adolescence, many learn that it's safer to stop asking and start memorizing, safer to play the game than to challenge the rules. Compare this with the spirit of ancient philosophy. Socrates didn't teach by giving answers. He taught by asking deeper and deeper questions, leading his students to discover truth within themselves. He believed that wisdom begins in wonder. But wonder has no place in standardized tests, and so the modern system kills what should have been the heart of education, the sacred spark of curiosity. 4. The hidden curriculum. Beneath the surface of subjects and syllabi lies something darker, the hidden curriculum. It's the silent lesson plan that every student absorbs, even if it's never written on the board. It teaches you how to behave in society, not by nurturing freedom, but by reinforcing hierarchy. Schools teach you to sit still, follow instructions, and seek permission. Not because these things are inherently educational, but because they train you to accept authority. They don't teach you how to think, but what to think. History is often taught as a list of events, not as a series of ethical and political debates. Science is taught as dogma, not as a process of inquiry. Even art, when graded, becomes a performance for approval, instead of an expression of truth. This is not education. This is social conditioning. The hidden curriculum turns schools into miniature societies where status, conformity, and obedience are rewarded, and those who do not fit the mold are diagnosed, disciplined, or discarded. The system doesn't just fail to prepare you for life, it actively prepares you to submit to a life that serves someone else's agenda. 5. Philosophy and true education. So what is true education? We must return to the roots, to philosophy, the love of wisdom. Real education is not about filling your mind with data, but about transforming your consciousness. It's about learning how to live a good life, how to ask meaningful questions, how to see the world not as it is presented, but as it truly is. Aristotle believed that the purpose of education was to cultivate virtue, to shape not just skilled individuals, but good individuals. Education in this view is a moral and spiritual journey, not a mechanical process. The Stoics taught that the educated person is the one who has control over their mind and emotions, who is not enslaved by fear, status, or greed. How often do our schools teach this? We must resurrect the ancient idea that the goal of learning is liberation, from illusion, from manipulation, from the prison of ignorance. True education is revolutionary. It disrupts the status quo. It leads to independent thought, civil disobedience, and the courage to create a new reality. That's why it's feared. That's why it's hidden. Conclusion. The mind reclaimed. The greatest deception of modern society is not that education is failing, but that we believe it is meant to free us. The system was never about liberation, but now that you see the illusion, you have a choice. You can remain in the cave, or you can rise into the light. The path of true learning is not safe, easy, or quick. It requires unlearning, questioning, and sometimes walking alone. But it is also the only path that leads to your real self. Not the one stamped by a degree, but the one forged by wisdom. So ask the questions you were told not to, seek the truths that aren't found in textbooks, and most importantly, educate yourself in the way that the system never will. Because real education doesn't end at graduation. It begins when the illusion ends. Call to action. Join the awakening. If this message stirred something inside you, it's because it spoke to the part of you that has always known the truth. Subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into hidden knowledge, philosophy, and awakening the mind. This is not just a video, it's a movement. Let's break the illusion together.